Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello.
Hello. I almost thought I wasn't going to get the second hello
I
there.
know. I feel like
Ooh.
the one just doesn't feel enough. And then, that was weird. That felt weird.
It threw me. I'll be honest. Okay. So getting into the actual topic of the episode, we're going to talk about your website, everyone. As a professional copywriter, you need a website. This is a non-negotiable. Can you start pitching before you have a website? Absolutely.
Yes.
But you better make sure you are working on that website at the same time because you will not be taken seriously without it. You can say, oh, I'm actually in the process of building my website, but that process can't be lasting indefinitely. You need a website.
There might be some small businesses that don't look for it. And so that's why we often recommend best clients start pitching, because you can add a lot of value and they might not look for that portfolio. But if you want to start working with even small businesses, though, frankly, I've worked with small businesses that expect it and ask for it. So
yeah,
you
don't
need it.
delay. Exactly. Yeah. So get on top of that. And this episode is designed to help you get on top of that. Because I know that sometimes, especially when we have to write for ourselves, it's overwhelming. You will be surprised at the difference between writing for yourself and writing for a client. Writing for a client, it's so much easier to go, okay, well, yeah, I know I have to do this and this and this. And because this is the process that Nikki and Kate taught me. And okay, but for some reason, when we have to write for ourselves, we go, oh my gosh, where do I start? So the first thing to remember is that this is a copy project just like any other copy project. Yes, the client in this case is yourself, but you shouldn't be treating it any differently than any other copy project.
Yeah, I think too many copywriters, and where things go wrong and where hurdles happen, where you start feeling frankly bad about your portfolio, is that you just go straight to whatever platform you're using and you start typing copy into WordPress, into Squarespace, into Wix, whichever one you're using, or if it's another one, and you just start writing. And you haven't done all of the steps that you should be doing with every single project.
Yeah,
including this one.
Exactly. You'd never do that with a client, right? No. You wouldn't be like, oh, I kind of think I know what they want, so I'm just going to sit down and start writing. Of course not. So yes, it is your own site, but it's still super important to start with a creative brief and actually write out, okay, what is the purpose of this website? Who is my target audience? What does this page have to do? What does this messaging need to say?
So quite frankly, you might do a creative brief for every single page. So your home page, your portfolio page, your contact page, your about page. I think those are pretty much all the necessary pages. You might have others, but if you're doing others and you think it's important, then do a brief for it and make sure what do you want people to get out of that particular page. And you might realize, oh, I don't actually need this page. Or you might realize, okay, this is what the call to action is. This is what I want people to do on this page. This is the goal. Without that, you're just flying blindly, throwing copy up on your site, and it's not going to work how you want it to work if each page doesn't have focus, doesn't have a clear next step, a client's going to go there and be like,
Exactly. Just like in any other copy project, each piece of copy on your site has to have a purpose. I think that's one of the biggest tip-offs that a copywriter didn't do a creative brief first, is when we're reviewing their portfolio on one of our coaching calls, for example, and we go, okay, I don't understand the purpose of this section. And sometimes if the if the student is on the call, we'll say, okay, let me just ask you a question. Did you write this copy because the template had a section here and you thought, ooh, I should have some copy here? And that is oftentimes what happens. And again, that is a byproduct of being like, well, I have to fill in this template, so I'm going to fill it in with copy. But that's not especially you're a copywriter, the template should not be driving the copy. And the great thing about these templates, in, again, whether it's Squarespace or Wix or Verb or any of those other ones, they're all drag and drop mostly, or you can suppress sections, or there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's really not much. You don't have to have stuff in there just for the sake of having it in there. Every single piece of copy in your website should have a purpose. And if you can't identify what that purpose is, then that copy has no business being there. Because remember, a client is coming to your website, yes, to evaluate you and to decide whether they should get in touch with you. But if they get to your website and your website is wordy, or it's not geared toward them, which we'll get into in just a second, or it's chaotic, it's haphazard, they can't tell what you're trying to say, they're going to assume that that's the exact same kind of result they're going to get from you, and they're not going to get in touch with you.
Yeah,
So
the bulk of your work, just like every other project, is pre-work. It's before writing. There's so much that's happening before writing. And so to Nikki's point of each point, or all the copy having a purpose, it also needs to have focus, because what I feel like I see a lot with student portfolios is that your messaging is getting mixed, where you start talking about yourself. And I think, okay, this is going to lead to an about page and I should click through to an about, but then it transitions into talking about portfolio stuff, and it transitions into contact me, and suddenly I'm going to the contact form, and there's all these different mixed messages in there. So outlining so if you have a template you're working with, okay, what is the purpose of each section? And then, okay, what's along with purpose / focus, if you want to use, like, put one word or a phrase, the purpose of this section is, it's going to lead from my portfolio. Okay, so then there shouldn't be anything about that would be on an about page or be on a contact form. It should be about leading the client to your portfolio. Mm-hmm. So picking that one word and key focus for that section and making sure you stick to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like, we'll say this probably a couple of times, but just like in any other project, don't write for the sake of writing. Mm-hmm. And make sure as well, just as like you doing a creative brief for yourself, make sure that you get your brand voice down and you understand your tone guide for yourself. Now, when on your portfolio, you will have pieces from for other clients or spec projects, and the client will be able to see that you can write in different brand voices. But you need to figure out what your brand voice is, and that brand voice needs to be consistent on every page. We'll see that will be a piece of feedback that we'll give relatively often as well.
I was gonna say all the time. Mm-hmm. I think this is actually one of the biggest hurdles for people, whether you know it or not. I think some people definitely realize and recognize that this is a hurdle for them. Of writing for myself is hard. We all agree. Yes. But it's probably because you haven't explored what you want to sound like. And I think we, especially as copywriters, we see a lot of inspiration out in the world of other copywriters, other copywriting portfolios, how other copywriters are talking. And we feel like we have to adopt some of that we have to call ourselves a conversion copywriter or use thought leadership and SEO copywriter and convert and revenue and all of these terms that we feel like we have to somehow incorporate, or buzzwords that we feel like we have to incorporate. And I think
the sassy persona, I see that so often.
Yes,
I'm a sassy copywriter. I mean, they don't actually literally say that, but that is the tone. And it's getting overdone.
Well, the girl boss tone, I feel like, is the glitter speak is to reference. Eliza Schlesinger has a great special on Netflix. Your website should, of course, and I think new copywriters, especially as you're writing your site, you feel like, well, I've never worked with a client yet, or, I only have spec pieces. How can I say I'm going to help you do X or Y or Z? And so I would recommend listing out all of the skills that you have. You've done the training, presumably, if you're creating your portfolio. If you haven't, get copywriting training. You need to know how to write copy and have experience with spec ads. That should go without saying. But so write out, the difference between features versus benefits. You know how to write a clear call to action. It can be that simple. And so write out this list of all of the things that you've done. I have experience writing emails. I know how to write a compelling subject line that might increase open rates, or that you've practiced maybe in your own inbox to say, here's subject lines in my inbox, here's how I'd rewrite them, and I think would help bump up open rates, or whatever it is. But you're going to realize how much you do have to offer and how much value you do have to bring to a client, which will hopefully get you over that hurdle.
Yeah. And this is not for use on the website, by the way. What Kate's saying is make out this list of the things you've learned to remind yourself of the work that you've done and the skills that you've honed, so that when you get to writing your website and you talk about the benefit to consumer, which as a copywriter, you know, is very important, you're going to want that all over your website, that you can say, all right, yes, I do know I have learned how to write copy. And so I know more than someone who has not learned how to write copy, which will be the vast majority of your clients. Well, and then just to quickly go back to the brand voice, the consistency across pages. I think that sometimes when we haven't made those brand voice decisions, some of us think, well, it's just my voice, but our voices change day to day. You know, some days I'm very serious, some days I'm totally goofy. And if you just go by how you're feeling that day, which we see a lot on newer copywriter websites, the homepage will be very straightforward, and then you get to the contact page, and it's kind of silly and jokey, and if you can't demonstrate a consistent brand voice for yourself across your website, how can a client expect you to do it for them? So back to that same point, you are putting your best foot forward with your website. So you want to show all of your best skills as a copywriter on your website.
Yeah. And to that point, I think thinking through how you do want to present yourself and sound. So what is obviously a consistent voice, but not getting in your head of how you think you should sound, how other people sound, how other copywriters sound, how you think clients want you to sound, which if you're working with every client's different. So yes, you want there to be a clear benefit to your clients, but in terms of the word choices and the tone that you are using for yourself, forget about everything else. If you're trying to please every single client, you're not going to have a consistent tone of voice. You're just not. If you're trying to write, if I wanted to write for this client, I would write in this brand voice and they would have this brand voice. It is your brand voice. And so tuning out everything that you feel like you have to be, need to be, should be, and really spending some time with how you want to present your copywriting career, how you want to position yourself in the market. And you don't want to be the same as everyone else. You don't want to just do what someone else is doing. Yeah. First of all, you don't know if it works. Like, you don't know if they're getting clients. You don't know. But second, because you want to be your own copywriter.
Yeah. All you have to demonstrate is consistency in your brand voice. Pick a brand voice and demonstrate consistency. The place to demonstrate all the different types of brand voices is in your portfolio. Yep. Be consistent in your brand voice on your website. Yeah.
And remember that it can change. Be consistent now, but a year from now, you might have learned and grown, and the world keeps turning, times keep changing. So that your portfolio, and this goes for everything, it should not be a static document where you do it one and I'm done, I'm never visiting it again. Throughout your first few years as a copier, you're going to be going back, or you should be going back to it frequently, because you're going to get better pieces. You're going to have better work that you want to put in there. You're going to swap out some of the spec pieces. Maybe you keep some spec pieces for a specific industry that you want to work with clients and you don't have an actual piece yet. Fine. But you will be swapping things out. You will be changing probably the copy on your site. You might do a new tone guide for yourself a year from now or 2 years from now, and that is fine. So flipping your mindset of this is going to be perfect. No. You want this to be, I forget who said it. I'm sure this came from somewhere, but done is better than perfect. And I think that applies very much so with your portfolio.
Yeah. Put your best foot forward. Yes. Absolutely. Do some thinking about it. Do the pre-work before you start writing. And then after you write it, edit it. And if you're a CCA student, let us give you feedback.
Yes.
But don't hold yourself in this, well, I can't do it because it's not going to be perfect, because then it's never going to get done. No. I think another thing that you have to keep in mind, it's a copy project. Who is your target audience? What does your target audience, which in this case, spoiler alert, is going to be potential clients, what do they need to hear? I think that's a big mistake we see a lot. People start talking about what they want to say versus what the target audience needs to hear. You see a lot of, well, I love copywriting. I'm passionate about writing. I've always loved writing. And that is
gentle
so
love. No one cares. I know that's not very gentle, but sometimes we need to hear it.
It doesn't make it gentle just by shouting gentle love, Kate. But I appreciate what you're saying. Yes, it's it's wonderful that you are passionate about copywriting. That's fantastic, but it's not something that your target audience, your potential clients care about. They
know
about,
that you're a copywriter. They got to your site from presumably either pitching you, probably not from search, but maybe. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to rank for anything with copywriting in your location. Anyway, so they came to your site probably because of pitch. So they clicked the link to your portfolio. So they know what you are. They know what copywriting is. Mm-hmm. I know we've said this before. Don't educate your clients. If they're on your site, they are looking to hire you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you don't need to tell them that words are important. Mm-hmm. They're already at the stage of evaluating whether they should get in contact with you to hire you. So you don't need to convince them that words are important. You don't need to tell them what copywriting is. And I know that sometimes people are like, well, what if people stumble across my website? Nobody's going to stumble across your website. The only reason they're going to get to your website, like Kate said, is because you pitched them, or maybe you were referred by someone else, or maybe I always use a business card example. I can't even remember the last time I had a business card, but say you had a business card and you gave someone your business card. The only reason they're going to come to your website, if they are a true potential client, is to evaluate whether or not they want to get in touch and hire you. We're not writing the website for people who randomly find it because they found your business card on a subway seat. We're not writing to those people anyway. So remember where they are in the process. They're in the process of evaluating whether or not they should get in touch with you. Not even yet whether they should hire you, because the next step in the process is to get in touch with you. But so you don't need to sell them on the concept of copywriting or why words are good or any of that kind of stuff. Don't educate them just about copywriting. Tell them what they're going to get out of working with you. What is the end benefit of your copywriting services? How are you going to benefit their business? And make that clear across your site. Make it the main focus of your site, because what else could they possibly need to know? Not that you live with your husband, 2 small kids, and a cat, which is fine. But if you're going to put that on your about page, it better be at the very, very bottom. Some character information is great, but it's not the key piece of information. What they need to know on your about page, which we always laugh, your about me page is not about you. It's about them. It's about what you can do for a potential client. Keep all of your copy focused on your potential client. And just like with any other copywriting project, do some work, walk away, and come back to it and evaluate it again and make sure that it's really talking to your potential client. It's not talking to your mom or you, or it's not a personal website. If you have a personal blog, this is not the place to put it. Keep it focused on your client or potential clients. And of course, your portfolio is another important page. We did a whole episode about your portfolio. So we'll link to that there, and we go really deep into it. You need a contact page and be cognizant of what goes on that contact page as well. Contact form. Don't just throw your email address up or your phone number. Good Lord, you're going to get some spam.
When people, I've said this on that episode, but test your form, and I will continue saying this to the end of time. Test your form, make sure it works, but also because that piece of copy that should pop up to let people know that the form was successfully submitted is another opportunity to have your copy shine. So look for those little opportunities where you might be able to infuse a little bit more of your brand voice. Whereas there are going to be areas, for example, your portfolio write-ups of who the client was, what the challenge was for the project, how you solved it, where there's a little less opportunity necessarily to infuse. It might be a little more straightforward, is all that's to say on that type of page. But those little submitting the form, copy around the form are opportunities. Look at everything as you would, again, with a client project, as an opportunity to put your best foot forward, put the best copy that matches the brand voice that.
Exactly. It's what we started out by saying. In a nutshell, don't treat this project as any different than any other copy project. Give this project the same respect that you would a client project, and don't skip any of the steps. Go back through and take all of those steps in a very strategic way. If this is your first big project, great, congratulations. but take it seriously. You know all the steps that you have to go through. And on top of that too, great news, you know all the steps you have to go through, and you can get feedback, CCA students, you can get feedback from your fellow students and from our coaches so that you can get help with anything that you might have missed, but you put your best foot forward first.
It's a copy piece. Like if your client gets to your homepage and it's not reflective of some of your best work, they might not get to your portfolio where maybe you have the best portfolio pieces in the world. How are they going to get there if the copy, if they look at your homepage and say, this is clearly so it's unorganized, it's unfocused, it doesn't, what's the benefit? If there's no benefit right there hitting them in the face, who knows how long you'll keep them there.
Yeah. As a business owner, I am evaluating potential vendors all the time for all kinds of different things. And I will tell you that anybody within the marketing field, if I get to their website and they can't market themselves, I'm not interested. Because if you can't market yourself and identify opportunities to market yourself and market yourself in the best way, I can never trust that you're going to be able to do it for me and my business. So
treat it like a copy project.
Treat it like a copy project, because it is. And probably one of your first and most important ones. So get help, get feedback. Absolutely. Feedback, qualified feedback. Don't go ask your mom. Don't go ask your husband, whatever. Get qualified feedback from your fellow students and the coaches and the CCA. But make it the best that you can. Don't just throw something up there because you needed to cross it off your list. It's too important. Okay, so you have some work to do. If you don't yet have your website up there, it's time to get started on it. If you do already have your website up there, go back to it now with fresh eyes. Now that you've heard this episode and all the things we've talked about, go back to it with fresh eyes.
And if you think, oh, this copy's bad, I've been there. We've all been there. Again, times change. So that's the beauty of it.
And if you need to do a rewrite, what's your first step going to be, Kate?
Creative brief.
Yes.
Pick me.
Kate's a winner. Start with a creative brief. If you wrote it before and you didn't start with a creative brief, guess what? Start with a creative brief now. It'll make it so much more of a pleasant and easy process when you know what you're trying to write versus just writing anything for the sake of filling space. You're going to end up with a much better project. Okay, so is everybody prepared with their homework? Yes, of course I am. Yay, Nikki, thank you. Kate, you're the best. That's what I thought you would say. Okay, so get to work. And with that, we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.